So now let's work on this small message component. So first thing is I like to display the name of seller here, and you can see I have changed the button. This will be now button danger, and I want to also display the name of seller here. So this is the one component, message component, small component, and this is the show.play.php. So how to communicate between these, right? Because we have to transfer our seller name from show.play.php to this component, and we can easily do that because in a show.play.php we are loading the message and we can pass some properties here, and we can receive that elements as a property in our message.play.php. Before that, you can see here I make their button danger, and I want to display this pop-up in the center, so I can write modal dialog and then modal dialog center, CENTERET center. Okay, now this should display it in the center, and you can see center. So before we pass the props, let's see about the camel case and kebab case. So whenever you write something like this with a dash, this is the kebab case, okay, and you know the camel case is something like that. So when you pass element as a kebab case, you should receive props as a camel case. For example, if this was as, say, this is the block, is the component, right? Is a component, same like we have a message component in the show.play.php, and if it was passed here like is dash published, then we'll receive this as a process is published in a camel case. So if you're still not sure what I meant to share here, then let's check it and let's do something here. So let's say I want to pass something title, T-I-T-L-E, title, and this is title, this is title. So I want to pass this in our message component, and I have to receive this title as a props. So here I'll go in the message component, and here I'll declare the props, props props, and then I'll write this as title. Okay, and then I can display this here. Let's say in the seller, here I'll write title, and now let's go here, and you can see we got this message as title. So we pass in this way. So what if it was something like this? So let's go here, and if it was like title and name, and if you go here, we don't get anything. We don't get anything because we are passing as a kebab case, and now we should receive this as camel case. And here now we have to write name. This is now camel case, and this is now camel case. And if we reload this and check this, and you can see this is title. Now we got this. I hope you got this idea about this. So now first let's get the seller name. So I'll write here SELLER, seller name, and seller name is this name. This is the guy who is selling this laptop. Okay, so here we'll write the seller name. Okay, and now we have to write this here, seller name, SELLER, seller name, and copy this seller name, and here should be now seller name. Refresh this. You still don't get seller name because now this is the dynamic content, so we have to, you go here and we have to bind this, okay, so that we will know this. So give 2 colon, and we have seller name. So in the message, so here is the spelling mistake. Here we have triple L, it's the seller name, and here as well. So seller, SELL, seller name, and now we should able to see the seller name, and here you go. So send a message to seller name, send a message to, and the seller name. Okay, now similarly let's pass some other props as well, because we need more props here. So we need a user ID, and that is the currently logged in user ID. Similarly we need the receiver ID, that is the user who advertised this ads, that is the seller. And then add ID. Okay, so let's use some more other props. So now here we'll use bind user dash ID, and it's the auth user ID. We can also get this from the controller directly, but let's do from here. So auth user ID, this is the auth user ID, is the current logged in user. We're passing this as a user ID, and then we'll give another, we'll bind another property that is a receive receiver ID, and this is the advertisement and the user ID. This is the advertisement, user ID is the receiver ID. And then finally we need the add ID. So we'll write add dash ID, and we'll write this as advertisement and then ID. This is the advertisement ID. Save this, and we have to receive these three props: user ID, receiver ID, and add ID. So let's go here and let's receive user ID as a camel case, receive receiver, receive receiver ID, and add ID, and give a command. So this should be fine. So refresh this, everything is fine, and you can also check this, all the props here. So if you want to validate, you can check all these things: user ID and receive receiver ID, and other thing is we have add ID. So let's check this prop, and if I click here, and you can see this is first is the user ID, the second one is the receiver ID, which is 2, and the final one is the add ID, and you can verify add ID from here also. So this is product/9. Okay, and in the next video we'll send the message.